and welcome to the Beginner's Guide to Risk Management by Springwater Software. My name is James Hare, and with my colleague Martin Howes, we are going to explain to you a little bit about the basics of risk management and how it is conducted in organisations. This video will particularly focus on a short overview looking at exactly what risk management is and the various types of risk management that we tend to see in practice, the benefits of conducting risk management for your organisation, and a brief step-by-step guide showing you how to conduct risk management. Now, I do encourage you to take some time out to look around the website for a little bit more guidance on the subject.
So before we start thinking about how to conduct risk management, let's think about what's meant by the term risk. One formal definition of risk is the mixture of probability of an event happening and its outcomes. Some people say that risk is equal to the probability of an event occurring multiplied by the impact of its outcomes. By the term risk management, we extend on this definition of risk to include how we're going to control our risks to ensure that they do not reflect negatively on our organisation. It literally means the management of our organisation's risks. So why do organisations bother with risk management? What's the point of it? Now, don't assume that we'll solve all of your business problems. Unfortunately, in business there are very few quick solutions. If we use risk management appropriately and effectively, it can help to improve an organisation's overall performance and efficiency, help you to reach targets and goals with minimal slip-ups and mishaps along the way, reduce the chance of undesirable things ever taking place, and reduce the effect of undesirable things if they do happen. These outcomes all result from having greater control over the issues that could obstruct our organisation's performance. A reliable risk management plan will prepare our organisation for whatever the competitive world may throw at it.
Before we dive straight into our step-by-step guide, we need some sort of formal documentation for our risk management results. All of our results from each of the individual steps of our risk management process are written down in something called a risk register or a risk log. As you can see, each column has a heading followed by the relevant data for each risk. Do take note that this is only one example and that risk registers will differ between organisations. The risk management process follows a 4-step procedure consisting of risk identification, risk assessment and prioritisation, risk treatment, and monitoring and reviewing. The first stage of the risk management process is risk identification. This is all about finding out where our organisation may be vulnerable to risk and uncertainties. To do this, we are basically looking at the organisation and creating a list of what could happen in the future. We can use a number of techniques to maximise the number of risks that we identify. Brainstorming, the most common of risk identification techniques, is a group activity where those involved would identify and list a large number of risks. Another way to identify risks is using interviews and surveys. By asking employees their views on whether the risk is apparent in the organisation, we can gather a wider range of opinions on the subject. The final main risk identification technique is SWOT analysis. Again, this is another list-making task, but it follows a more structured manner. The term SWOT is an acronym for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and details are listed under each of these headings. Now that we have a sufficient number of risks that we have identified, we need to rate the likelihood of the event occurring and the impacts of our risks. Many businesses will tend to use a scoring system of either high, medium or low for this section. The reason that we do this is to find out how critical the risk is to the business overall. These scores are compared and placed on a risk map which visually tells us the priority of each risk. Using this, we can produce a running order of which risks to control first based on how critical they are to our organisation's activity. This process is known as risk prioritisation. The risk treatment stage looks at how we're going to control our risks. Here we are given 4 main options: avoid the risk, prevent the risk, mitigate the risk, and transfer the risk. Avoiding the risk does pretty much exactly what it says on the tin. We conduct business activity whereby we are no longer subject to that risk. For example, this could be by deciding not to take part in a certain risky activity. Preventing the risk looks at stopping or reducing the likelihood of a risk event occurring in the first place. By preventing the risk, there is less disruption to business activity as the risk is likely to take place fewer times. Now we move on to the third strategy, mitigating the risk. Mitigating the risk looks at the impact side of the risk equation. Risk mitigation works through implementing controls to reduce the consequences when a negative risk activity occurs. The fourth and final risk treatment strategy is to transfer the risk to another organisation. This will remove our responsibility for dealing with risk events to someone outside of the organisation. By reaching a stage where our risk has been controlled, it might seem that our risk management strategy is complete. Unfortunately, this is not the case. We must first reassess our risks to test how effective our controls have been. To do this, we simply look at our new likelihoods and impacts of our risk event and determine if the criticality has been reduced to an acceptable level. If not, then the risk treatment process should be repeated. Also, we must take into account that risk management is a continuing process, which means that we should review our risks periodically to find out if there are new ways that we are exposed. Thank you very much for watching, and for more information visit www.threatsandopportunities.com.